build my gallows and build them high. Makes a long time climbing before I die. I want the chance that's bit in his eye. Oh, well, they gave me bars, but I can see between to a dusty yard and long gone green. We call that freedom, if you know what I mean. And I dry my sorrows, but the whiskey's gone. I'm sober as a judge.
Hello everybody, welcome to Longbangers. This is episode 66. I'm Matty, as I always am. I've got John joining me tonight. John, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. I'm really good. How are you?
You're best not asking that question tonight. I've just been wallpapering my daughter's bedroom, and what I discovered tonight is I really can't have a wallpaper. It's a shit show.
Do you not wish that you discovered that before you started?
Aye, but I kind of had the hunch that didn't came up was then before we got into it. But I sort of, like the pressure was being applied for my daughter. She was wanting it done. We'd already painted the walls. Can't paint either, right? What I should have done, in retrospect, or in hindsight, is put a plea out on the podcast to say, listen, we've got an audience that you could advertise to. If anybody's got a painting and decorating business that wants some free advertising for however many months, could you come and wallpaper my daughter's room, please? That would have been maybe something we could have done, because you know what it's like. Folk are always sending us free stuff. Do you know, like they send us, well, mostly nude pictures as well, and I'm sick of getting them, Brian. We get the nudes and we get all these offers to help and all the rest of it. Because we're nice guys, we always knock it back. But I should have taken advantage and put a plea out to a kind-hearted hippie to do some decorating. As it is, I did it myself with Jane, and aye, less said about it the better, I suppose.
It sounds like you've made a James Hunt of it.
Do you know what? It's probably not as bad as it could have been, but it's definitely not as good as if somebody who knew even remotely what they were doing could have done with it. So next time we'll be putting a plea out.
See, because you've been ripping the piss out my IQ on Twitter, can we get you to take some pictures of your handiwork and put them on Twitter for people to judge?
See if it wasn't in my daughter's room, I would have said aye to that, but I think she'd be too impressed when I did it. What did your IQ come in at? Have you been back to check it? So anybody listening that doesn't know what we're talking about, John, you were on MyFitnessPal, is that right? Tell us the story.
Aye, so to extend the story a wee bit, I bumped into a guy at the weekend who I'd not seen for a wee bit, and he's lost quite a bit of weight. He's been running down to Starbucks, having a coffee, and then walking back again. So he's probably covering about 6 miles every other day. So I got chatting to him about it. He said that he's got this app, MyFitnessPal, and I was having a look at it, and I've started recording what I've been eating, what I've been doing for exercise, particularly as the gym that I go to, or had been going to up until lockdown, just reopened again yesterday. So I was right, I'm going to make a concerted effort to watch what I eat, record what I'm doing, all that kind of stuff. And the apps, I've used it before, but it's extended or it's expanded itself since I used it like years and years and years ago. And it's got like recipes, it's got like, there's a premium option for it. You can pay $3.99 a month for, which I just absolutely refuse to do. Because, well, it's $3.99 a month and I'm a tight-fisted bastard. But one of the other ways that they make money is like every other app that you've got, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Facebook, whatever. It runs adverts, and the advert that popped up on this app was for an IQ test. So the IQ test was 20 questions, and it wasn't really questions as such. It was more like, here's 9 pictures. The first 8 of them were filled in, and you could look at it, you could see that there was a pattern. It was basically choose for the 6 options, which one is the next one in there. So I've gone through the 20 of them. I'm thinking, oh, this is not bad. Like, I'm going to have a massive IQ at the end of this. So I gets to the end of it. There was a time limit on it as well, and I thought, like, I've maybe done it in half the time allocated. I'm thinking, right, I'm feeling pretty confident that I've got an IQ like Einstein or Isaac Newton or something here. And then it says to me, it's $14.99 to see your results, and I went, fuck that.
Hi. Well, Einstein was always farting about on his mobile phone, wasn't he? Like, he was famous for doing these apps on his phone. So
he invented apps, I think.
Well, we put it out to our Twitter audience, and the most popular range is between 16 to 80. So I think you're a bit thick.
I think, is that not in Forrest Gump? Was that not borderline learning disabled.
I'm not sure what the correct term is for that these days, but aye, probably. He was quite proud of it in Forrest Gump.
Quite proud of his learning disability.
Aye,
Quite proud of something.
well, that's it. Him and his running.
Aye.
How the fuck did we go into Forrest Gump? Anyway.
IQ. Aye, that's about a tenuous link, isn't it?
Aye. Normally it's because someone's rhymed with Tom Hank and the type of podcast that we are. Right, football, Hibs, and on to more pressing matters. So a bit of a weird run up to the game on Saturday because St Mirren were COVIDed out their nuts and had no goalkeepers. So they went and got Hearts keeper. What did you think of that decision to go after Hearts in particular?
Well, you'll remember, and people that listen, I'm sure probably spend as much time on Twitter as I do, but you'll remember a tweet from St Mirren talking about the heartbreaker, John Obika.
Yeah.
And then that was, I never saw it, but I'm led to believe that it was swiftly pulled after they got Bobby Zlamalen.
Shitebags took it down.
Aye. And the funny thing is as well, like I remember when we were in that sort of the halcyon era of court cases and arbitration and whatnot, you'll maybe remember a podcast with Craig Levine talking to Donald Finlay, the Cowdenbeath. I think is he the Cowdenbeath chairman?
Aye.
And he was talking about how, well, imagine a situation in the future because of like the way the voting's gone and how people have decided to try and end the season. Like if Cowdenbeath ever get in touch with us and ask for a player, Hearts would be well within the rights to tell him to go and get stuffed. And it's like obviously like Hearts and St Mirren have got a relationship. I don't know if I call it a relationship.
Well, it's like an abusive husband, isn't it?
I was going to say it was like an awkward peace treaty like North and South Korea since 1986. So for St Mirren to take a Hearts goalkeeper, you can, a lot of Hearts fans looked at that and said, "What are you doing? Like, why are you even thinking about helping them out?" I don't know. It's a bit bizarre. Like, I wonder if he was just the only goalkeeper available anywhere in the world, because he wasn't match fit, like because he's no played and Hearts haven't trained, and you've obviously had the bother with the COVID test there, and the stuff going on with it.
That was the reason. Is see if they went to go to any of the other championship clubs, they're no testing the players now to play in the Premiership. The player has to have had a test, and Zamal had been tested at Hearts because they're testing the players. So that was specifically why they had to go to Hearts cap in hand to say, they didn't care how bad he is. Obviously, they must have said that as well. Can you just give us somebody who's not got COVID that can play in goals? And it had to be Hearts for that reason.
That's a really interesting snippet of information. I didn't know that, but I was thinking of tweeting Jamie Langfield after the game. I don't know what sort of age he is, but I'd imagine he'd be in the same sort of age bracket as, say, Alan Combe. And thinking, like, if Jamie Langfield was looking at that, I know his nickname is Clangers, but I wonder if he was looking on at Bobby Zamal thinking, I probably would have got those two.
Probably, aye.
I'm talking about like the first and the third goal, because I don't think, nobody was getting the second one.
Nah, the second one was a fine finish. We'll come on to that in a wee second. So it was a bit of a weird situation, and I don't know whether it was appropriate to have sympathy for St Mirren in it, because they kicked up a big fuss about the fact that it had to be delayed, and the chairman, I think it was their chairman or the ex-chairman, was on Sports Sound on Monday night, and he was talking about looking corrupt and everything, and I'm thinking it's not corrupt. Effectively, you're looking at those players as being injured. They're unavailable for whatever reason. Now, it wasn't that long ago that Wraith Rovers had the same situation, and they had to play Ryan Stevenson in goals.
Yeah,
who was an outfielder, because they weren't allowed to postpone the game. So I thought it was a wee bit kind of a cheap shot at them saying it was corrupt, but anyway, it was interesting, and a wee kind of added dimension the fact that it was the Hearts goalkeeper that was in, and because of the rage of the Hearts fans as well, they didn't care whether they wanted us to win or get beat. They were all confused. You could see online, like looking at the accounts, and nobody cared who they were rooting for or what they wanted to happen. I'm sure some of them kind of spontaneously combusted. They thought of it.
The image I've got in my head right now is the boy Zach Galifianakis from, I think, is it The Hangover? I don't know if it's the first or the second one. It's just got like the matrix, the numbers, all his eyes. Try to work out the permutations.
Aye. Anyway, I have a wee inkling that maybe Hearts sent him there and just went, "Ken, didn't even bother trying. Just be yourself."
Just be yourself.
I can they'll get one over on St Mirren, get the room back for 1986. We'll
See,
send them Bob Islamal.
the funny thing is, like, see watching the first goal, like just the reaction for Zamal, it was like, oh fuck, here we go again. Like the boy, I actually almost feel a little bit sorry for him because he was on a hiding to nothing. Like he's not a great goalkeeper. He's known for his like the hair, the beak, the outrageous warm ups, but he's also known for chucking a few goals in. That's it's just started in the worst possible way for him. Like he's had a torrid 90 minutes.
I think he was looking around for an away fan to like kind of narrowly slap him so he could just distract everybody from his shanness.
I don't know. Do you think that's better or worse to have no one in the stadium? Like, you know, because he was probably looking for the ground to swallow him up. Like, are you more or less anonymous in a stadium with no one in it?
I don't know, because like you imagine when it happened and you probably heard somebody going, "Boo, you're shit." But this time we would have known it was Jim Goodwin. No, just an anonymous voice from the crowd and can pinpoint it. Anyway, right, so let's talk about the game. Interesting lineup. Scott Allen took a knock, so he was missing for the lineup, which meant we had same back four as the previous week, and we had Gogic, Newell. Help me, John. Who else came in the midfield for us?
Murphy and Boyle.
Boyle. That's it, and Murphy. So, what did you think of Murphy? Because he was probably our first proper look at him after he kind of came on as a sub against Aberdeen. This was the first time we really got a good chance to look at him.
I'll be honest, he didn't stick out for me. It's not that he didn't stick out because he didn't have a great game or whatever. Like he played his role, and I was having a think about this earlier when I was working out the formation in my head. And I think was he sort of interchangeable with Joe Newell in terms of playing left midfield and playing through the middle?
I think Newell stayed pretty central, but I think Murphy came inside a lot. I'm not sure they swapped. I think Murphy is dropped inside. We're in danger of going into tactical analysis here, John.
I know it's a bit of a grey area for it, isn't it?
What's happening?
So it's hard to describe because when Hibs shifted to a 3-5-2, I can't remember. It wouldn't have been at the start of this season. It would have been towards the tail end of last season, and I think it was enforced because of injuries and suspensions and whatnot. And then in the last couple of weeks, I think we've reverted to a 4-4-2. Obviously, didn't work out very well against. In fact, we were missing Nisbet against Aberdeen, and we were missing Gogic, and we were missing, I think, just Nisbet for the game before that. I forget who it was. Dundee United.
So.
But this 4-4-2 that we've got and Murphy's inclusion in it seems to be working out all right. Touch wood. And I mean, I'm trying to think about things to say about Jamie Murphy. And the most I can say is that he slotted into that 4-4-2 lineup, and Hibs looked good as a result. They both sort of complemented one another.
I thought he did well as what's the expression, like a carrier of the ball. Like he was able to kind of take the ball in and drive forward with it, which we've been missing for a while. He wasn't always looking for a kind of really clever pass to play or anything like that, but he actually kind of just took us into some really good positions. I thought his contribution was really good. The other thing that I thought with him playing like that, he was pulling St Mirren's midfielders into positions they didn't want to go into, which meant Newell had space to play. And I think we saw a much better performance from Newell as a result. Don't know what you thought of how he did.
I thought Joe Newell was excellent. I've talked about him a lot in the previous few weeks, particularly when we've played that 3-5-2 where he's been. In fact, maybe it wasn't a 3-5-2. Maybe it was more a 4-4-2 where he's been dropping back and helping out Doogie Tripod, and you got the same from Gogic on the other side. But for all the defensive work that he was doing before, it was lacking a little bit going forward, and I wonder if he was maybe stifled a little bit by Scott Allen in front of him. He wasn't really able to get forward and do the things that he showed at the weekend there because I felt like he was he covered every proverbial blade of grass at the weekend. He was back, he was defending, he was taking the ball in, he was bringing other players into play, and he scored a cracking goal as well.
Aye, it was a lovely goal that he finished. I don't know if you saw the post-match interview on Hibs TV where he was getting interviewed with Ryan Shanley.
Yep.
And
Or Joe Newell Jr.
Aye, it looked like he was getting interviewed with his younger self.
It was funny.
Somebody had tweeted, we'd gone out as we sometimes do for topics of discussion, and I'm just finding the tweet, 'cause one of the questions was who has the best hair at Hibs now. It was Neil Renton, actually, the tweet. Obviously, I think he's looked at them, and I thought they looked like a bit like Ant and Dec. There's something going back to the PJ Duncan era,
Yep.
Ant and Dec.
Oh, do you know, we should maybe get that picture up and put "Let's get ready to rumble" over the top of it.
We'll get somebody who's good at doing that kind of thing to do it. So we also had Newell. I thought he probably was man of the match. Like, he got the award. I thought that was fair. Nisbet came back into the team as well, and I think he made a big difference. What did you think of his contribution, John?
I thought so when Nisbet when Nisbet was brought in for Dunfermline, we were looking at the number of goals that he'd scored for Dunfermline and for Wraith Rovers before that, and the progression that he'd made as a person and as a footballer. And I was thinking of him as being like a sort of perfect foil for Doidge, kind of like that two-pronged strike partnership. But actually, what I saw for him at the weekend there, in particular, I think it was for, what you say, it was in the lead up to Newell's goal, was he collected a headed clearance for Ryan Porteous, and he's maybe loitering somewhere between the centre circle and the edge of the opposition D, and he's picked the ball up and he's driven on with it, and he's looked right. He's played in Boyle's cut it back, and it's 2-0 Hibs. Just contributions like that are, he's not the one-dimensional player that I thought that he perhaps would have been, just in terms of like offering goals. I think we've got a really good all-round player there.
I think he's it's really funny thing with Nisbet. He's scored a lot of goals with Wraith, scored a lot with Dunfermline, and I think last season, because he was in the league with Lawrence Shankland, who is like the darling of the media, if you like, he has a lot of hype surrounding him. It's like he's just flown under the radar. But I think we've got a terrific player with Nisbet. I think he's got, like, there's no much that you would like to see him add to his game. He's getting goals, getting the tap-ins. He's got a decent shot on him. So he's hit a hat-trick against Livingston, can take a penalty. You look at some of his goals for Dunfermline, he can take free kicks, take long-range shots. He's a little bit of everything. And you saw, like you said, the second goal was a really good example of a player who is confident. Like, he was able to bring the ball down. It was a lovely touch that he took as well. It wasn't like he's some players that take 2 or 3 touches to get a ball like that under control. He's controlled it first time, looked up, played a perfectly weighted pass for Boyle, and then continued his run into the box. Yep. And you look at the goal that he scored, a bit of fortune about it, but he's in that position to score. And it's like his goals against Livingston. He was very similar, to just get in that area and take a gamble, and something's going to like bounce off you and go in.
Yeah. And who better to learn from than Christian Doidge in that respect?
Oh, exactly. Doidge is the master at letting things bounce off him and go in. Do you think he's needing a goal though, Doidge?
Do you know, I think last season, with the difficult start that he had, I would have said, he needs a goal. However, I think I've seen a lot of people talking about his work rate and everything, but I think he's still getting into the right positions. And I think if circumstances were different, like there was an opportunity for Dougie Tripod to cut it back for Doidge, and I think that's an easy goal. Dougie takes an extra touch. I think he tries to finish it himself, which, you'd be forgiven. I think any player would be forgiven in the same sort of situation looking for their first goal. So no, I don't think Doidge needs a goal. I think the goals will just come to him naturally, because he's doing Christian Doidge things. He's getting into all the right areas. The goals will come, especially because of the service. Like, if we continue to get the same sort of service from the same sort of players as we got at the weekend, there, goals will follow for Doidge or Nisbet or whoever. And I think something else that's just popped in my head now is that goals at the weekend there came from different people. You've got one for Nisbet, you've got one from Newell, and you've got one for Boyle. That can only be a good thing. Goals from all over the pitch.
Yeah, you want that, don't you? To spread. It takes a burden away for Deutsch as well. I think last season he felt that burden a bit because nobody else was really contributing goals the way that he was.
Absolutely.
Never like to talk about refereeing decisions. It's a lie. I love talking about refereeing decisions. We probably got out of jail. Would say should St Mirren have had a penalty?
I don't know what you're talking about. No, they absolutely should have had a penalty because Porteous has pretty much caught the ball and then threw it away again. Like I never did that.
You see his face after it though. He can look at the referee like, "Oh fuck."
I hope someone out there has managed to catch a bit of that footage of Ryan Porteous because like if you saw that face in a court of law, you would send them down.
Aye,
That was
a poker face, doesn't he?
Aye.
Definitely. It's like the opposite of when a player handballs it then pretends it's hit them in the face or the chest or something. You sometimes see that. He's just gone, fuck yeah, I've done that. Play on.
Aye. It's almost as if he just wanted to like detach his arms, like he never had any in the first place. I couldn't have touched that.
I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know whether he just mistimed it or lost the flight of the ball or whatever. But
to be fair, if that had resulted in a penalty, I probably would have looked at it about 10 times to try and analyse it and try and understand exactly what had happened. But with the result the way that it had gone and the fact that we never had that penalty against us, I never looked at it again. But on that note, with the form that Marciano was in at the weekend, I'd have put money on Marciano saving it. Any penalty.
When was the last time he saved a penalty? Do you know?
I don't know. I felt super confident about Marciano between the sticks with his big fruit salads.
He saved one against Hearts. You know, in the 3-1 game, Easter Road. It was 3-1, but we should have won 5-1, 6-1 that game. We're all over them, and he saved the penalty, but the boy scored the rebound. Kind of bundled.
Oh yeah.
I must annoy me a goalkeeper when that happens.
Oh, was that the cup game? The cup replay again at Easter Road?
No, I don't think it was a cup game. I think it was just maybe it must have been. I think it was a league game, mate. McGregor had a goal topped off. The header looked like there was hee-haw wrong with it. Who all scored? Shinnie,
aye,
Darnholt, and was it Cummins? Cummins got the first one.
Yeah.
Aye, that was a good game, that one. That was one of my favourite games, actually. The Easter Road, it was a brilliant night. The place was jumping.
That was, so we were talking about it, I think, on short bangers, like goals, like the ones that lifted the roof at Easter Road. Like that was one of those nights at Easter Road where I actually really enjoyed some of the videos from outside the ground with, when they could hear Sunshine and Leith. Like it felt like the noise in Easter Road that night, it was probably, if not the loudest night, then certainly one of the loudest nights at Easter Road.
Aye, we absolutely pumped them that night. I'm not sure if that was the one after we played Wraith when Lennon went through the players. I think that was that game. Lennon absolutely nailed the players because we were shit against Wraith. Then we played Hearts and absolutely hammered them.
Possibly.
I think so. I don't know if Marciano has saved the penalty since then. But anyway, we digress.
We'll go to the statos for that one.
The statos will be able to tell us better. Marciano had a couple of good saves. He had that sort of the one for the cameras, didn't he, with the free kick. I thought it was a really good save. Josh thought he should have held it probably. We argued about that. I was like, nah, good save. Look at he can't see it. He's seen it late. It's over the wall at the bottom corner. He's done the right thing. Pushed it out. Josh said, nah, he's got loads of times. That's one for the cameras. But the save he made really after that was terrific. Kind of point blank one.
Yeah. So is Josh? Does he do goalkeeper coaching or something? Or he is a goalkeeper?
He does goalie coaching.
Aye.
So obviously, I have to sort of defer to him for these kind of things because so he's a change referee now as well, which is fucking brutal because I'm moaning about referees all the time, and he knows what he's talking about, and I evidently don't. And that's a terrible situation to be in. You're arguing with somebody.
All I was going to say was about that first save. Like I felt the same at the time. Like it was maybe one for the cameras, but I wonder if he's gone for it maybe looks a bit more theatrical than it needs to be to get that palm, the palms in the ball to get it away from danger.
Yeah, I thought it was a good save. Yeah, I thought he had a good game, Marciano. Right, we'll look at the goals. The other refereeing decision, and this was one that was called out in the sports scene, was Boyle's goal. So, sports scene seemed to fucking freeze frame it to make it look like he'd elbowed it in. Now, I don't think he did. I've watched it loads of times. I'm sure he shoulders it. And I think you could freeze frame an incident like that where you don't have necessarily the sense of perspective or which way the ball's travelling at that moment in time. And I think Sportscene have done them and made it look like he's elbowed it in. I've watched it loads of times and I think it's a shoulder and a legitimate goal. What did you think?
I think that there's another really great example this weekend of where you can take a still of an incident and make it look worse than it actually was.
Are you talking about Alfredo Morelos getting the horror challenge in inverted commas?
Aye, the boy wins the ball there. There's nothing in it. There's no intent. Like there's nothing to see here. But I thought, and I've not really properly looked at that back either. But at Boyle's goal, but it looked to me like it went in off his shoulder. Like because Boyle definitely wasn't expecting to be at the back post on the receiving end of a Joe Newell cross, and he probably wasn't expecting, although he probably should have, Bobby Zamal to flap at it. And I don't think it's like humanly possible for him to have got the ball into the net at the angle that it went in at off his elbow.
Aye, it was a weird goal. I don't know if it's because of when you're watching it on TV. So you're not really got always the best angle on it. And you watched it, you kind of went, "Is that goal? Have we scored there?" Oh, it's fucking in. It's in. But I couldn't quite work out how it had gone in because you hear the post getting clattered as well, which I presume was Boyle going into it.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a fair enough goal. Didn't they see what Sportscene picking it still and saying, "No, he's elbowed in." I thought it was bullshit. Like it wasn't really reflective of what happened.
Aye.
So one decision I think the referee got right, which was the goal, and the penalty I think the referee got it wrong, and that went in our favour. It doesn't often happen when it goes in our favour, so I'll have to accept it when it does and not be like I don't care. Like we roll several like that.
Aye, we can scream about it another time. It went, like you say, it went in our favour this week.
Aye. Newell's goal, very quickly, we'll touch on that and then we'll go into some of the points that folk have asked us about. What a lovely goal that was, wasn't it?
It was beautiful. I am the champion of the underdog, and I think Joe Newell and his start to his Hibs career and how he's progressed since then up until like Saturday's goal. Saturday's goal. I felt like it was a wee bit. I think it was deserved for him. Like I say, he's put in a lot of defensive work over the last few weeks, and there was a point last season where it looked like he was coming onto a game and then he picked up that wee ankle injury. And I'm hoping, I really, really hope, and it might mean that we need to make sacrifices elsewhere in order to get the most out of Joe Newell. But I hope that we see more performances like that, and I hope that we get to see more Hibs midfielders arriving sort of late into the edge of the box, into the box, the way that Joe Newell did. And it was a beautiful finish. I think I saw it described somewhere as he's basically walked onto the ball, and I don't know how else to describe it other than that. And I think it was on his weaker foot as well. I think he's predominantly left-footed.
Yeah, right-footed finish.
Aye, and he's just stroked it away. It's a beautiful goal.
Nice one to watch. Yeah, we can right in the corner, and keeper's got no chance with it. It's just everything
and
about
his hair's sort of flapping in the wind behind him, and it's beautiful.
Oh, we're back in the Tom Hanks territory again. Cracking goal. It's interesting. Jack Ross was talking about it afterwards, and Joe Newell mentioned that they've been working on it in coaching and training. Newell getting into the box in those sort of positions more. So, like you say, maybe that's something that we can expect to see a bit more of. I hope so. Right, we'll go to some points that folk have raised. The first one from Hibs Allison. She said, "Where does Scott Allan fit into the team now?"
After Saturday, he's got a job in his hands to get back in the team, because you got a complete performance, I think, from Joe Newell. And don't get me wrong, like I think he was able to play the game that he did because he had Gogic along beside him, and I think because he had the running of Jamie Murphy that you mentioned before, it put St Mirren on the back foot, and it allowed players like Joe Newell to go in, that old cliche, like go and express themselves, go and do what they do well or do best. And Joe Newell did what he did best. But I think we got to see perhaps the best of Joe Newell in a Hibs shirt since he's joined. Certainly the most complete performance he has that he's showed. And I think I mentioned earlier on that I think perhaps having Scott Allan in front of him in recent weeks has maybe stifled that sort of attacking output from him. So are you going to try and shoehorn a Scott Allen back into the team who hasn't been playing as well as we know that he can? Or do you stick with a guy who's put in the good performance? And I know which I would go with at the moment.
The unfortunate thing for Murphy is we're playing Rangers on Sunday, so he can't play because he's on loan. So you would assume Scott Allen would come back in if he's fit.
I think Jack Ross has got a bit of work to do there, because would you, like, for all that Scott Allen offers when he's at his peak, Scott Allen hasn't really been at his peak for a good number of months now. Like, I didn't mean like just since the start of this season. Like, I'm talking back into the end of last season. Is there another option there to kind of even? You can maybe look at it as a sort of psychological move for Jack Ross as well, because maybe Scott Allen's looking at it and saying, well, I'm surely a shoe-in for this game because you've got nobody else. Does Jack Ross say, well, actually, no, you know, just because you're Scott Allen doesn't mean you're getting in. There is someone else there that can play that role. Maybe it's Jamie Gullen, for example. Maybe it's Ryan Shanley. I don't know. Like,
Wright, maybe.
Or Dre Wright. I'm just chucking out names there at the moment, but I think who's the most ideal candidate to replace Jamie Murphy for the weekend in terms of the role that he offered? And it might be someone like Dre Wright for the effort that he showed against Aberdeen in terms of running out players, in terms of bringing other players into play. Scott Allen's not really done that of late.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Maybe that's the kick up the backside to Scott Allen. He's not that I think he's ever found wanting for effort, but maybe if you know my place isn't cemented in this team, like I'm not guaranteed a start, and there's competition for his place, we might see more from him. And maybe the game against Rangers is the one to put him in and say, make it hard for me to drop here.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the way Jack Ross will look at it.
Aye, it's awkward because, see, when you think back to beginning of last season under, there will become a time when I didn't mention Paul Heckingbottom anymore, but there was a debate then, and something that was highlighted to me was you've got Doidge, Canberry, Allen. How did we arrange that team? And actually, we couldn't arrange that team because we were trying to shoehorn different players in.
Yeah.
Do we want to find ourselves going down that route again? Because I think to try and get Scott Allen into the team, you probably want to be playing like a sort of 3-5-2. Mm-hmm. And do you want to break up the defence that we've got at the moment? I would say no, because of the few goals that we've conceded. And I know it's kind of become a bit of a piss take topic of, we've not conceded a goal for open play, but we've not. I think it's been, 2 penalties and a free kick we've conceded?
Yeah.
So, it's a difficult one. I think if I was Jack Ross, I would probably look for as like for like replacement for Jamie Murphy against Rangers, rather than try and shoehorn Scott Allen back into the team.
Oh, it's interesting. We'll get folk to tweet us what they think about that as well. Next point was from Leon. He said, Hibs look far better with 2 up top. Is this the best shaped defence we've had for years? Newell was brilliant. Hopefully we can get those types of performances out of him more consistently. So really for that one, take the comment about the defence. Is this the best defence we've had for a while?
Possibly. I think probably the best defence I've seen, and it's maybe tinged with the green tinted specs, but I think when we had at their peak, Gray, McGregor, Hanlon, Stevenson, leading up to the Scottish Cup final, I think that was probably the best defence that Hibs have had. Just in terms of like the mixture of, like I talked about it last week, like the mixture of like the ball winner and the guy sort of mopping up behind. You had, David Gray. I think we've maybe seen the best of his years at Hibs, and possibly Stevenson as well if Dougie Tripod stays there. But I was having a look at this earlier because I thought it was a really interesting question. One of the things that I think I've seen in my time watching Hibs and watching football in general is just that a mixture of youth and experience usually, I wouldn't say it necessarily provides trophies or whatever, but it usually provides something to build on, and it provides something for the future as well. So I was looking at like just the respective ages of our back four that played at the weekend. So you've got Paul McGinn 29, Ryan Porteous 21, Paul Hanlon 30, Dougie Tripod 18. You've got a mixture of youth and experience right across that back four, like sort of dovetailing on the right hand side of the defence, the left hand side of the defence.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm looking at it. I'm thinking it's not a terrible place to be. It's just not. Like, there's going to be other guys that'll come in that, you know, I'm hoping that. So the way that we've got Stevenson sort of mentoring Dougie Tripod there at the moment, you're going to have McGinn doing that, hopefully in a couple of years' time, doing that for whoever it is that hopefully comes through the academy and is challenging for that. Or he's maybe sort of having a word in the ear of forgotten man Tam Jim at right back, saying like, these are all the things that you could be doing. So like, it's probably. I wouldn't necessarily go as far to say as it's the best defence we've had of late, because I think there's still a lot of time for that to sort of flourish and fully develop.
Yeah.
But it's certainly probably as good a defence as we've had since the back four that I mentioned before.
I tend to agree with that. I think just now special mention needs to go to Paul Hanlon. I think Paul Hanlon has barely put a foot wrong this season. And he got a bit of stick for folk last season, and some of it justified, I'll be honest. But I think folk were quite quick to write him off. This season, he's been as good as he's ever been for us. I think he's been absolutely outstanding.
I couldn't tell you when Paul Hanlon's first game for Hibs was. It would have been what, sort of 2008, 2009?
Something like that, yeah.
Hibs fans have been writing off, some Hibs fans have been writing off Paul Hanlon since about 2008, 2009. And he's now 30-year-old captain of Hibs. I think he deserves a lot of credit for the amount of stick that he gets, and he keeps bouncing back. He doesn't seem to let it get to him. Don't get me wrong, like, I'm not saying that he doesn't put in the occasional poor performance or whatever, but he has always come back and started showing off why it is that he's still playing for Hibs and why he's Hibs captain.
Aye. He looks every bit the Hibs captain now as well. He's been terrific.
And by the way,
next point.
Something else, sorry, that's underrated about Paul Hanlon is his hair. It's maybe no long, it's maybe no flowing. It's just, he's just got that old-fashioned 442 side shed. Over you go, boom.
Never out of place, is it?
No, he's using a good dollop of, I don't know if it's brow cream or what was that? Is it Dax wax or whatever it is?
Oh, brow cream. Right, next question or next point was from Budgie McBudge. How come we're world beaters this week when 2 weeks ago we were absolutely shite, being lucky so far, and we're going nowhere under Ross? And I don't think I need to answer this one. I'm just going to hand over to you for this one, John.
I feel like
touch paper and
I feel like it's just me talking tonight. So I saw this question come through, and I think anyone that's listened to the podcast before will know that me and Budgie are good mates. So his question was, how is it we're world beaters 1 week, shite the next, and this was all based on my, it's been described as a rant in the previous podcast, and I was genuinely really fucking upset in the last podcast because I just can't, honestly, it pains me, the comments that you see. And most of the comments that I saw the previous week after, the 1-0 defeat off Aberdeen were on Twitter, but I had a wee nosy at Hibs.net today, and this was some of the comments about Boyle, for example. So I'll not name any names, and I won't name the thread title, so you can't work out who it is I'm speaking about, but maybe if they listen, they'll know.
Panicking. It's me, you're not picked any of my posts, have you?
No. So Boyle against Aberdeen, probably the worst penalty I've ever seen given away. I mean, that's bollocks. Like, maybe it's the worst. I don't even think it's the worst penalty I've seen Hibs give away. Like, I mean, that's just nonsense. Boyle has very little football savvy.
That's bullshit.
And I think that's just so over the top. It doesn't really deserve much more in the way of comment. Headless chicken deserves to be dropped as much as anyone else. And that, to be fair, that's probably true. Utterly, this wasn't about Boyle. I think this was more a general comment, but utterly pathetic, not good enough. And this one really made me laugh. We are lucky to have 13 points. We could be sitting on 5 in reality. Well, in reality, we've got 16 for 21.
Aye. I fucking hate comments like that. See, right. Well, we're talking about Aberdeen, right? And the Hibs game. It's saying Hibs have been lucky to get points against Kilmarnock or whatever. And I said, were Aberdeen lucky to beat us? because they fucking were lucky to beat us, right? They got a penalty out of nothing, really, right? And you could argue, the boys worked hard, they chased the ball down, and all the rest of it, but 99 times out of 100, that's not a penalty, right? Boyle clears the ball,
Yeah.
none happens, right? Or he's aware of the player, whatever. They got the penalty, that was all they did. They had a couple other chances, but they held on to a 1-0 lead. If we'd done that the other way around, though, folk would be saying we were lucky. Aberdeen get credit for it.
Yep,
And I said, well, why are Aberdeen lucky, or why are Aberdeen good and we're lucky? So I said, well, Aberdeen did that. They do it all the time. So they're not lucky all the time. I said, well, so we're the only lucky the first 2 or 3 times out of all the times that they've done it, then. Because surely if that's just what they do, the first time isn't lucky as much as the last time isn't luck.
Yeah.
It's just what they do. And they went, yeah, they were lucky the first couple of times that they did it, and then after that, it's no luck anymore. It's not fucking bollocks. It's like, give your team credit where it's due. You don't have to write off and say, oh, that goal was lucky, or we were lucky not to get that, and then ignore all the things that have gone against us. It just is what it is. Like that inconsistency of the argument, it just totally discredits the whole point. As soon as somebody comes out with something like that, you think, there's no value in discussing it any further. It's a fucking nonsense point.
Yeah. So actually, there's 2 final comments that I'm going to read out. They're the last 2 that I've written down. But first one was, we basically need a new midfield, and the second one, or the last one rather, is we are poor, do nothing in the final third. Jack Ross's football is dreadful, and the wins will now dry up, boring to watch. So you mentioned there in your let's call it a rant, because we call these rants now. You mentioned about discrediting things, and part of the wee thing that I did when I went through Hibs.net today was looking for the same sort of posters making positive comments after the game at the weekend, and I didn't look very hard or for very long, but I didn't see them. I never saw anything about how Hibs midfield looked good at the weekend. I never saw anything about Boyle's contribution. He scored one and he set another one up. And like some of the exaggerated comments about, having very little football savvy or headless chicken or whatever, like it just like nothing really adds up. And it's still like, I took the point. There was someone that commented on the Longbangers podcast thread a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying that he thought that it was people just sort of expressing their frustrations. Well, how can people not express their frustrations in a more rational way? Like, I didn't get me wrong, like I was frustrated. I was disappointed that Hibs had got beat, but I can look at it and say, Ken, what? There was still some good things there. And the same way that I looked at the weekend and said, there was things that we could have done better.
Yeah.
But we won 3-0. The things that were different about the St Mirren game and the Aberdeen game, where we can talk about like tactics and line up aside, but we took our chances and we didn't do that against Aberdeen. So you had the square ball that or the mishit pass for Dre Wright. Those have worked against St Mirren. It's just that difference between your clinical one week and no clinical the other. It doesn't mean that anyone's shit or great. It's probably somewhere in between. Sometimes things just didn't work.
Aye, and it's fine margins a lot of the time as well. I think folk forget there's another team trying to stop you doing what you want to do. Right? There's that, and you have to be better than them and all the rest of it. But sometimes it comes in just a bit of fucking good fortune, for want of a better expression. Right, next question. We'll move on for that. Would losing Scott Allen be a miss to the team if we use his wages on another striker?
Oh, I don't know that we need another striker. Because I've been championing Jamie Gullen getting a game since we brought him back from Wraith Rovers on loan. If we need another striker, play him. Save the money for something else. We've now, I believe, I don't know much about him, but I believe Ryan Shanley's a striker as well. So if we need a striker and Jamie Gullen's not available, play Ryan Shanley.
I think it goes back to what Graham Matthew was saying, wasn't it? When they assess the squad and they say we've got a first team player, there's a backup, and there's a player coming through, and probably for the striker position, we're covered in that respect.
Yeah. That's not to say, like, if we were, I don't think that we're, I don't know. I don't know if we're in the realms of letting Scott Allen go. But assuming that he was sold and we were looking to free up the money elsewhere, I think I'd maybe look to, I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's maybe someone in the squad at the moment who would look to extend the contract of, kind of like we did with Martin Boyle.
It's a good shout. I think the obvious thing where this question is leading, and I'm surprised we've not touched upon it already, is can we convince Neil Lennon to swap Scott Allen for Lee Griffiths?
Do you know? I'm still not a fan of bringing Lee Griffiths back because of his this is going to sound like a really perhaps a really heartless view, but Brian's been of the opinion before that there's no room for sentiment, and I think that applies to Lee Griffiths. But even worse, I don't think that we are rehab for Lee Griffiths. Lee Griffiths needs to sort his problems out.
Yeah, that's fair.
A football club isn't going to solve that. Hibs definitely aren't going to solve it, and I don't think that we should take that gamble.
Speaking of rehab for players, what about Stokes? You see that?
Oh, I was saying to someone today, actually, I was chatting to a boy at work who's a Celtic fan, and I was saying that I feel like a disappointed parent talking about Tony Stokes because, Hibs have got a bit of a relationship with him. Obviously, the cup final, and he's been. I think he was maybe 3 spells as a Hibs player.
Spells, yeah.
But the boy's undoubtedly talented, and I think we saw the best, the absolute peak of Tony Stokes in that cup final. But some of his career choices and some of his his personal choices seem to be just outrageous. How I want to understand. Say he's picked up an injury or whatever. How some players that have got cruciate injuries or they've maybe had joint injuries or whatever. The plastic pitches are a big no-no for them. They limit their training on them, or they just they don't have any game time on them whatsoever. So if there's an undocumented injury that that we're not aware of, then fine. Well, maybe not fine. What I'm trying to get at is that Livingston have had a plastic pitch for a number of years. If he had something wrong that prevented him from playing on a plastic pitch, what was he then signing for them in the first place?
Amazing. Listen about that. You read it and take it at face value because we've not got anything to suggest that there's any other nefarious reasons for why that contract was ended. But surely he's looked at it and gone, "That's no grass." And they've gone, no, this is definitely a plastic pitch. We train on it and we play on it and all the rest. We're famous for how shite it is. Do you want to sign? And he's gone, aye, all right, I'll still sign. It can't have been a surprise when he rocked out for that first training session and went, what the fuck is this? That's Irish accent, by the way, hey, what the heck is this?
If there's one thing in Scottish football that's more infamous than Hearts' legal battles earlier this year, it's Livingston's plastic pitch.
Aye, it couldn't have been a surprise to him. It's just a weird way to end his contract.
Aye, it's funny. When the boy messaged me this morning to say, "Oh, have you seen what's happening with Tony Stokes?" I was like, "Oh Christ, what's he been up to now?" And that's probably way down the list of things that I thought he'd been up to. After a boy that's battered an Elvis impersonator, not being able to fulfil his Livingston contract fell pretty far down the list. But I still had to laugh at it.
But what I'd like to just get on record is I absolutely love Tony Stokes, and honestly, I would forgive him anything for that cup final. I would still side him the morning, and there is room for sentiment in football. Anyway, next that was Ronnie Young that asked that question. Going back to that, next question was Pride of Edinburgh. Can you see Ryan Shanley being a star, and any players that you would like to see us sign? Tony Stokes. I'm joking.
So I'm going to take a really narrow view about Ryan Shanley and whether he's going to be a future star, and I'm going to say yes. I think the hardest thing for any youth or development or under 21 player, whatever it is you want to call them, is getting that game time. And I think at the moment he's got a manager at Hibs that is quite keen to give youth a chance. I can't remember whose catchphrase that was originally, but it's ringing bells. Aye, give youth a chance. So he's got some game time, and he now needs to. I think he now needs to try and take the opportunities when they come, whether that's through substitute appearances, whether that's through cup games. But I think, based on what I've seen for Jack Ross so far, based on the number of academy players that both he and Hibs have brought through of late, he's got every opportunity.
Cool. I've not seen enough of him. If I'm totally honest, I don't know whether he'll be great or whether he'll be the next Danny Handlin or Alex Harris or whatever. Do you know, like players that look great for a moment in time and then went on to not do as much as they potentially could have.
I feel bad about Alex Harris. I thought he had potential, and then he got a shite injury, and actually possibly the absolute opposite of what Shanley's got and potentially in front of him just now. Just Alex Harris had the injury, and he had the shit show that Hibs were at that point.
Aye, that's a fair point. He works my work now, eh? This is
Harris?
aye. You must have seen him kicking about there. Well, before lockdown, surprised you never saw him kicking about the building.
Nah, I wish you'd said. I would have got. I know people that'll want strips autographed and all
Well,
sorts.
there you go. When we're back in, I think if he still is, I'll check on the directory. Anyway, right, Alex, if you're listening, come on the show. Right,
Yeah,
Peter.
that's something we need to try and progress. Actually,
Aye.
tell us what really happened at Hibs.
Oh, with the butcher years, how fascinating an insight would that be? Yeah.
I don't know. Could you call them the butcher years? It was a butcher for 3
Oh,
months.
the butcher months. It felt like fucking years within it. It was devastating. Right, Peter Henderson. And I want to give kudos to Peter here with his question because he's no mentioned Paul Hanlon at all. So credit to Peter. He said, where do we go and find a long-term right back? McGinn has been fantastic, but he's not the long-term answer to the position. Naismith or another perhaps. So you mentioned McGinn's 29. A few
29.
years left before we need to
29.
look at replacing him, or do we start that process now?
I would really like for maybe like a guest of the week, the people that ask these questions, see if they want to go on, because I'd really like to ask. Was it Peter Henderson? You said.
Mm-hmm.
What I want to ask him what a long-term replacement looks like in his mind. Like, how many years are you thinking of? And the reason I'm asking that, or the reason I'm sort of like thinking out loud with that, is footballers have short careers, and we talked about Paul Hanlon earlier, and how he's had, he's maybe been playing for Hibs for about 11 years now, and he's often a player that fans kind of pick on a wee bit or point out his deficiencies.
Used as a stick to beat him with sometimes as well. The fact that he's been there for so long, same as Stevenson,
Yeah.
as if they were that good, they would have went to a better club,
Yeah,
or a bigger club. No, there's very few clubs that are actually better than Hibs, but bigger clubs, yeah. Sorry, I interrupt, but it's a good point that you make.
So I'm just trying to work out in my head, and I think it's probably better to have a guy like Peter on to ask, like, how long do you see a long-term replacement? Because with a club like Hibs, if a guy is playing really well, if he's properly shining at right back, then you have someone that looks to come in and sign them. So how many years do we get a player like that? Or how many years do we have someone like that play for Hibs? You're always in. It feels like if you have that player, you're always going to be in that period of transition of trying to find the next guy that you have in. Or you have someone like Hanlon or Stevenson, for example, who've been here for a number of years, who become the guys that we give a lot of stick to because they've been here for a number of years, because they have the odd performance, the odd bad performance.
The stalwarts. That's a weird word there.
It's just like, don't get me wrong, like in an ideal world, I think what I would like to see from Hibs now and perhaps forevermore is for quality players to come through the academy, to go into the first team, forge a career for themselves, and either remain at Hibs because we've become successful and wealthy and we're able to retain these guys, or we do what we've talked about before in terms of we give these guys the opportunity, they go on and they forge that career for themselves, and we're able to sell them and just kind of keep working that model.
Cool. I guess that's a good answer, mate. I was thinking about how to answer that one, and I don't think I could have answered it better than that. Well done. Ronnie Young asked also, is there an academy player waiting to step up as Doig has done?
I tried to do as much research after the questions that we had for this week. All the questions were really, really good. And I have to admit, I'm not familiar with the academy or the development squad or whatever. When guys come through, I just kind of go, great. They are living my dream. I want to give them as much encouragement as possible. I want to see them do well in a Hibs shirt. So the two guys that I came up with from the academy were a guy called Callum Yeats and a guy called Dino Leddy. And then I was thinking about the other two boys in the squad that we've got that play right back. We've got David Gray, obviously, and we've got the forgotten man, Tam Jim. If we can get I'm hoping that one of those guys can come through. Like I was saying before, like, McGinn, hopefully Paul McGinn can be a mentor for them. Because I think we've maybe talked about it quite a bit. Like this, Paul McGinn's become a wee bit of the unsung hero, and he had a cracking performance at the weekend in setting up Nisbet's goal. And he's just quietly gone about his game. How do we tap into that knowledge, that ability, and pass it on to the guys that are in the academy?
So they need to be doing things like that. I think having Gray and Stevenson, and they had the extended, no, Stevenson, McGregor, and had the extended contracts, didn't they, to kind of in that mentor or ambassador role after it, which will help bring some of the young players on. I think they saw a tweet from Hibs that said we finished with 5 academy players on the pitch on Saturday, so it bodes well for them. Now is as good a time as any if you're a youth player at Hibs to make a mark, because there's not a lot of money in the game.
Well, when you think back to, I think the last time that Scottish football felt a real financial pinch was when whichever TV deal that was that we lost, but particularly Hibs, we had to go a lot of boys like John O'Neill, for example, who were on big weekly wages plus appearance money, and that's how you started seeing guys like Riordan, Brown, etc. coming through, because they were on peanuts in comparison. But those harsh times, those really difficult times, like sort of giving them that experience to begin with, paid dividends.
Definitely. Right, we're running out of time, so I'm going to move on to the next question. Neil Henderson, should Squirrel loan up for cheating? No. Right, they never cheated. BBC done a hatchet job on him. Unless he was on the drugs or something beforehand. Is there cheating that we don't know about? Right, next question. Kaiser Soze, how much respect will we give Huns, International Incorporated and Celtic in the next 2 games? Hopefully we stick with the 2 up front and kick fuck out of Morelos' bad leg. Yeah, I hope we do that. But how much do you think we will show Rangers a lot of respect on Sunday?
No, I hope not. I hope that, like you say, when Rangers come Easter Road, we play the game that we've been playing the last few weeks. Like, don't try and counter their game. Play our game. Make them think about us. Put them on the back foot. I think we've got a different squad. The one player that I'm thinking about in particular that I think could make a big difference is Porteous, because I think Porteous has matured a wee bit since he had that game, where the picture of him sort of looming over Morelos and giving him a hard time, because he just tried to kick lumps at Morelos that game.
They don't get sent off the game against Rangers after that, though.
And then there was the game after that where he's been sent off.
I still argue that was a red card, by the way. I thought it was harshly treated, but still.
I don't think it was a red card either, but I think Porteous has matured a bit since then, and I don't think he's going to get sucked into those kind of challenges. I don't think he's out looking to make a name for himself. And perhaps one thing that might go in his favour as well is that there's not a crowd there. Because as much as I'd love to see, how do I put this? There are, what a game like that's like. You know what the atmosphere can be like in that kind of game. There are, myself included, fans are baying for blood.
Yeah.
Not having me there baying for blood, not having 20,000 fans there baying for blood. Hopefully, we get more of that assured performance from Ryan Porteous that we've become used to this season already.
Well, I think that covers the next question, which was from Charlie, who asked about whether the playing without a crowd would benefit us. I think the big thing for me, I don't think since Lennon left and Heckingbottom came in and Jack Ross as well, I don't think we've really taken a game at Old Firm in the way that we did under Lennon and we did under Stubbs. And that's been a kind of disappointing thing for me. What I really hope happens on Sundays, we go and say, right, we're not just trying to compete in this game, we're going to try and win it and try and put Rangers on the back foot.
Yeah.
I think that's Rangers are due to concede a goal. They've still not conceded this season. They've had, as good a start as they probably could have hoped for. I think they've only dropped 2 points. So they're due to concede. I hope it's us that break the run. I've got a wee fancy for us to do it on Sundays. No often I get a feeling like that this early in the week, but I think Deutsch and Nisbet are going to be on the score sheet, and I think we're going to put 3 past them.
That's a bold prediction. I like
that. Right, next question. Jeff Ashton, wouldn't it be great if Sevco's injury list was so bad they had to have some emergency loans from our maroon neighbours, who would be the best for a complete meltdown at Gorgie? So I suppose similar to Zlamal going to St Mirren.
I don't know if Rangers borrowing a player off the Hearts would have the meltdown that Zlamal caused, because you've got that hands across the M8 relationship between Hearts and Rangers, don't you?
Aye, that's it, Rob. With their red hands and all the rest of it.
Red hands across the M8.
Aye. So no, Naismith, he's hated by Rangers, eh? The Rangers didn't like Naismith, so maybe he'd be one to go.
Well, we could get into bloody technicalities and difficulties here, but why do they hate him? Because he never played for the Rangers.
Aye, that's essentially because when he went, I use a deed, I'm off.
Aye. Well, it's a fuck them. I don't care about the Rangers.
I don't care about the Rangers. That's one of my favourite interviews. That wee moment from Alonga. I don't care about the Rangers.
Brilliant.
Right, this isn't really a question. So we've got a couple of comments. One from John Wallace, who reflected on the St Mirren game. He said 3 goals and another clean sheet. The defence looking strong. Needed a win like that before the visit of the Huns on Sunday. Hard game to call on Sunday, but if we can keep it simple and get in their faces and shut them down, then we've got a chance to sneak a win. Tom Fairney, I thought we got a couple of lucky breaks against St Mirren, and the goalkeeping issues worked in our favour as it turned out. But we know that all of these things could just as easily have gone against us, and they have, so I'm happy to take the breaks. My main point was that getting 2 key players back really helped, and I would be happy to see the same lineup against Rangers, where I honestly feel we could get a point at least. I think we could break the run without conceding a goal. I think the St Mirren game gave the whole team more confidence. If Alan comes into contention and is fit and confident, he could be an important sub, but I don't see him starting. And he said that's enough from me. I would agree. And Paul Galetta said, if Rangers are still missing Ryan Jack, it will be a massive plus for us. That's like the Swiss flag. I think we should keep 2 up top if we want to take 3 points. Big test for Doig and McGinn as they look strong in the wide areas. That's a really good point. And when you look at how Rangers play, we're really going to need Doig to have, Doig and McGinn to have probably the best games that they've had for us.
Yep, I agree with everything that Tom and Paul said. Just, if we can start with the same lineup that we started with against St Mirren, take the game to them, make them try and counter us rather than the opposite. Because I think, like you say as well, we've not really taken a game to either Celtic or Rangers since Lennon left. And I think, and I hope that we're starting to see more of a Jack Ross football side with some of the small changes that we've made. Like I think we've got the core of the team, the core of Jack Ross's team, and there's just been a couple of wee tweaks in recent weeks that have, started to show the difference. Gogic coming back, I think we really missed him against Aberdeen.
Yeah,
Getting him back was a huge boost. Getting Jamie Murphy in, that as much as I can't remember much of his contribution, but based on what you were saying, he definitely adds something, albeit he's not going to play on Saturday. That's more of the settled Jack Ross sort of vision I think you can see going forward.
Cool. Prediction for Sunday?
I'm going to say 2-1 Hibs.
I've got 3-0 to the good guys. Like, I've got a right good fancy for this weekend's game. Wouldn't put money on it because I'm fucking shy at predicting things, but that's what I'm going for. 3-0 with Doig and Nisbet getting amongst the goals. Maybe Nisbet getting 2 of them. Doig slapping one in, but by accident.
I don't care who scores as long as Hibs win. I'm happy.
Cool. Well, that's us, I think, John, for the night. We'll have short bangers on Thursday if you're available.
Yep, definitely.
Excellent. So get your questions in for that, guys. Tweet us at Longbangers or get us on our Facebook, which is also Longbangers. Or you can email us. Not that anybody ever does, other than to send, like I said, nudes. Longbangers@gmail.com. Nobody sends nudes. Don't go getting ideas.
Send nudes.
So thanks for listening if you made it this far, and we will catch you next week. Cheers.
The whiskey's gone apart. Well, they trailed me down when I broke free. I drank all the whiskey in Tennessee.